So thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to let the case team introduce themselves, but as I said in the note last night to the listserv, this is the first of a bunch of these that we're going to do. And to the extent that you can make them live in person, great. Hopefully you've got questions to ask. At the end, I'll ask a couple of softball questions of the case team before we stop the recording. Then I'll stop the recording so you guys can answer questions without fear of being recorded. So, Tom, I'll get out of the way. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, David. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom McKenzie. I think I recognize some familiar faces that I've either emailed with or perhaps visited with last year. But again, I'm Tom McKenzie. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission, and I'm joined by two of my admissions colleagues today. And I'll start with Dr. Lee to introduce herself first.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I'm an admissions counselor here at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. I just finished my first year here. And in my previous life, I spent many, many years as a pre-health advisor at a liberal arts college here in Cleveland, Ohio. So please listen to your pre-health advisors and give them all of the thanks and gratitude that they deserve. Christian?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning for you guys. My name is Christian Nussman. I'm the Senior Director of Admissions and Financial Aid. I just wanted to pop on here and say hi. And thanks for taking some time out of your morning. It's impressive on July 28th to see so many people tuning into into the session. So thanks for doing that. And I want to echo what your advisor, David, said about going to these sessions with other admissions teams. Go to as many as you can. It's an invaluable opportunity to connect with people like us and to get your questions answered and maybe ask the same questions. And you might hear themes that might help you down the road as you prepare for applying to med school and beyond. So I just want to say thanks. We got a full group here with Tom and Kathy. I'm going to leave you in good hands, but I just want to pop on and say hello.
Thanks a lot, Christian. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll go ahead and get going. Thanks again for hopping on, Christian.
You bet. See you guys.
We're going to talk about a bunch of different things here. We're going to talk about the application process a little bit of applying to medical school. We'll talk about some tips, tricks, and recommendations to applying. We'll give everybody a chance to ask some questions as well. We'll turn the record button off. Thanks for that, David. And you can, when the questions come, and then you can all be on your way and use us as a resource. Both Dr. Lee and I will share our contact information at the conclusion of this virtual session here, and you can email us anytime and use us as a resource. Dr. Lee is going to be hanging out in the chat, so if you have any questions throughout the whole presentation, go ahead and just use the general chat for questions. And Dr. Lee will be there to answer any questions beforehand, and then we'll have time for questions after as well. So a couple different things that we're going to discuss here. We're going to talk about all three of our MD programs. We're going to talk about the med school application process a bit. And again, we'll give you some tips, tricks, and recommendations to applying as well. All right. So to kind of start out, I want to just talk briefly about GPA calculations. I know many of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you are in a post-bac program, and we have a lot of students that ask, is my GPA on my undergrad transcript, post-bac transcript, going to be the same as my AMCAS GPA? And the answer is not necessarily. Now, if you don't have a post-bac program, perhaps, or you attended maybe just one institution and you're applying perhaps right out of college, right out of undergrad, yes, it very well could be, but not necessarily. AMCAS calculates your GPA based upon all the undergrad coursework you have completed. This includes college level courses while you were a high school student. This includes post-bac courses, and this includes multiple undergrad institutions if you've maybe transferred schools in your undergraduate career. All right. So all of the undergrad classes that you've taken throughout your entire undergraduate career is going to be included on your AMCAS GPA, all right? AMCAS also does not do any grade replacement. If you took a course multiple times, I maybe didn't do as well as I wanted in this course, so I'm retaking biochemistry again. Both the first and the second course, or however many attempts, are going to be counted toward that GPA. So no grade replacement in AMCAS, all right? So those are the things to keep in mind when your GPA is calculated. There's also that screenshot on your screen that you see biology, chemistry, physics, and math, and that AO stands for all others. So that's how your GPA is broken down, and exactly what Dr. Lee and I see when we review incoming applications. Both Dr. Lee and myself interview applicants for admission and review incoming applicants for interview. And this is exactly what we see, that same screenshot there below. So again, there's no grade replacement on all the college level courses you've taken throughout your undergrad career. And the same goes, so post-bac and master's programs. Post-bac and master's programs are great. We see a lot of post-bac and master's program students. I would say that sometimes it's career changers. Sometimes it's, I want to boost my GPA. Either way, whatever approach you're taking in terms of fulfillment in your post-bac and master's, generally it always is a great thing to have on your application. Another big thing I'm going to share is medical schools value a strong upward grade trend, whether that be in a post-bac or a master's, whether that be at the end of your undergraduate career. Medical school admissions is somewhat of a brutal business. What have you done for me lately? That's kind of what I like to say. So a strong upward grade trend is very, very critical. And your GPA, again, just like that same screenshot you see there, is broken down each of your years. And also the PB stands for post-bac. Your post-bac and undergrad GPA are calculated in one. So if you have all your undergrad credit and then you combine it with your post-bac credit, that's going to be your undergraduate GPA in AMCAS when you apply. There's also graduate GPA. That's a separate program. You will graduate with a master's degree and you'll apply to medical school with a graduate GPA and an undergraduate GPA. The graduate GPA will hold a lot of weight because that is the most recent. Again, that strong upward grade trend. I wouldn't say that a post-bac or a master's, one is better than another, one is more preferred than another. I think it just depends on individual circumstances and in particularly the program's fit. I'm going to look at my colleague here, Dr. Lee. She's an expert in that area too. Would you say that's accurate, Dr. Lee, in terms of differences, post-bac, masters? Any more comments you would add to that, or no? Maybe I got it right.
No, I think you did pretty well. Most post-bac programs include undergraduate courses. They may include some graduate level courses, but we love to see that upward grade trend, whether it's post-bac, whether it's graduate, whichever. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So a little bit about like the academics as well. We just kind of covered. That's going to make up a good chunk of the admissions decision. It is holistic review, 100%, but it is really also a numbers game as well. So definitely some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about what's the biggest component of a medical school admissions decision. The grades, can you handle that academic readiness, and the MCAT are going to probably be two of the biggest components, if sometimes not the biggest component. It is holistic review, 100%, but it is also a numbers game as well. You do need to show that you can handle the academic rigor of med school. So outside of academics, okay, what do you really need? Medical related experiences. This is a must. What are medical related experiences? Well, they can be anything that involves any kind of patient facing experience. This could be shadowing, medical scribing. That's a new hot thing now. Do you know what you're getting into when you apply to medical school? This could include hospice. We love when we see hospice, nursing home. We've seen in-home caregivers apply to med school. We've seen EMTs apply to med school. A lot of students have asked me, Tom, how many hours do I need? What's the minimum number of hours required? Really, there's not a minimum number of required hours. I will share, it's not uncommon though for students to apply to medical school with hundreds of hours, perhaps, of patient care exposure and experience. So hope that kind of helps provide some context. But no, there is not a minimum amount or a required amount per se. Again, any kind of patient-facing exposure is going to be key, or where you have exposure to patient care in some capacity, but avoid the pre-med checklist, right? I've worked as a medical scribe. I call that shadowing on steroids. If you've done medical scribing a fair amount, okay, I need to shadow now. Check. If you have a shadow opportunity, that's great. And if it's in a specialty maybe that you haven't had some exposure to, and it's something that you think you're going to learn a lot from, that's fantastic. But maybe try to not do something just for the sake of doing something. You want to make sure it's going to be beneficial to you and something that's going to help you grow. Also, just clubs, leadership, research. Research is a great way to show commitment to medicine. Our university program doesn't actually require research. Some medical schools do require research. I wouldn't say most do. I would say if you see a medical school that requires significant research or research at all, that's going to be more the exception rather than the norm. But nonetheless, research is also a great thing to have on a resume and show commitment to medicine. Full-time employment, that's another great thing as well. What about research? Again, any opportunity you have to show that commitment, research is also a great way to do that as well. The first three activities you list in AMCAS, those are the most meaningful experiences. You earmark those experiences as your most meaningful. So what does that mean? That means you have a little bit more in the character description to describe each one of these experiences. I'd recommend at least one of your three most meaningful be a medical related experience, like you are applying to med school. I think that's pretty critical. But outside of that, don't overthink what you use for your most three meaningful experiences. What activity needs to stand out on my application? There's not one activity that's a be all end all that stands out. Everybody does different things. Everybody has different hobbies, interests. Medicine's a big team sport. I couldn't stress that enough too. Any kind of activities or experiences where you know and you can show that you can work as a team. Gosh, being a member of a healthcare team, physician is just one of many important team players on a healthcare team. You got to show you know how to work as a team. This can include athletics. We love when we see varsity athletes apply to med school. This can include the arts. Do you sing? Do you dance? Do you play an instrument? Any of these things are very solid transferable skills to the field of medicine as well, or any kind of leadership experiences too. Sometimes we might get a little nervous if we see someone who has nothing but medical related experiences in AMCAS. All 15 of their experiences, nothing but medical related experiences. Gosh, I might think to myself, wow, that's great, but you're going to burn out a little bit. You're not even out of college yet, or you're just barely out of college. I think having some work-life balance is important. It's not like a race who can have the most number of hours, in this area or that area. I think you just want to have a good balance of teamwork, show that you know how to work well with others, have empathy for others, and also that you're committed to the field of medicine. Don't fill out all 15 experiences in AMCAS just for the sake of filling out all 15. Quality, way more important than quantity, okay? Plenty of students are invited to interview each year at our medical school that have less than 15 experiences. So the experiences section, that is the what. Here's my resume. Here's what I've done. Now we're going to jump into your sharing your story. This is the why piece of my application. Why medicine, my personal statement. So this is, I say, one of the few things and one piece of the application that you have some significant control over. This is where you're telling your story. Why do I want to apply to medical school and why now at this point in my life and career? The best essay does not guarantee an interview. The personal statement is not the most important piece of the application. What I mean by that is the best essay does not guarantee an interview. Yes, it's important. Have good grammar, have good punctuation, put effort into it, share your why story, but don't maybe put so much time into your personal statement and agonize over it for hours and hours on end each day where it maybe takes away from other components of the application that you could be working on. So yes, it's very important, but it's not the most important. So find that balance between that. But it's your why story. Don't overthink the personal statement. You don't have to use big fancy words or I got to tell this really compelling story that's going to be better than this person's story. There's not really a better essay. It's more about your fit and what your journey has been like. That's going to look different than another person's journey. So these are all things to keep in mind when you're going through and writing your personal statement to medical school. It is your why piece of the application. The experiences is the what, and then that personal statement is the why. So to piggyback off of this application in our careers, growth year. We don't like the word gap year. We prefer the word growth year. Think about how much self-growth really happens in a year, especially when you're maybe working a medical related experience. Maybe you're doing a post-bac or a master's. Think about where you were a year ago and how much you've learned since then. A lot of applicants are engaging in growth time. Medical school is becoming, I would say, much more competitive to get admitted to. So as a result, students are spending more time outside the classroom, post undergrad. And they're doing a lot of different things, working full time as a medical scribe for a year. Maybe they're working as a clinical research assistant for a year. Maybe they're doing some additional course, or maybe they're working in customer service for a year. We've seen students work career changers. Maybe they did something like Teach for America or a Peace Corps or something along those lines. There is not a list of pre-approved growth year experiences. As long as you're doing something that's going to benefit you, something that you're going to gain a lot out of. Even I'm working in customer service, got to make a little bit of money. Hey, all these are very, I would say, realistic and good things to have on a gap year or growth year component of your application. I almost compare it like a job interview. Let's say I'm interviewing for a job, all right? And then somebody else is interviewing for the same job. If someone else has a year or two or 2 years or more experience, it just might be a little tougher for me to get the job. It doesn't mean that I couldn't. I certainly could. But again, a lot of self-growth happens in a year. You got more experience. That's definitely going to serve you very well when you apply to medical school. And also, life just happens. One thing about life is it doesn't always go according to plan. You learn that the older you get, I feel like too. And I think that regardless of where your growth year plans take you, it's going to serve you well. So just make sure you're doing something productive during that gap/growth time. All right, so that's a little bit about the application process. One last thing I'm going to share before we dive into case in Cleveland. Please apply early. I hope if you're applying to medical school this cycle, you've already submitted AMCAS. If you haven't, I'd recommend submitting as soon as possible. You want to apply early. I recommend submitting AMCAS at least in the month of June or really July at the latest. And then I'd recommend submitting your secondary applications in July or August. I good timeline there. Anything later than August, even September, does get a little bit tougher. Medical schools, at least at Case Western, I'll speak for especially, we review applications really on a rolling basis. If you wait till October or a little bit later to apply, we always can't guarantee there's going to be interview spots available by the time we get to your application in February, perhaps, or whenever that may be. So again, apply early. So if you're applying next year, remember, you don't have to apply at midnight the day the application opens, but just apply sometime in the month of June. And MCAS, June, early July, hopefully secondaries, July, maybe August as well is totally fine too. So the great state of Ohio, here we are, across the country in Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland is a great healthcare hub. We're going to talk about our hospitals. A lot of Californians come to Case Western and they make Cleveland their home for 4 years, and many even decide to stay sometimes during residency too. It's a great place. I will share it's kind of a hidden gem, truly, when it comes to healthcare. And we are, okay, 2 hours from Pittsburgh. I'm going to say 3.5, 4 hours from Cincinnati, 5.5, 6 hours from Chicago, another 3 hours or so from Detroit. But there's a lot to offer in the city of Cleveland. We are located in what we call the University Circle neighborhood, which is like the cultural hub of the city of Cleveland. It's about 2 miles, 3 miles from downtown. And we have four really good hospitals that'll give you access to a very diverse patient population. 3 out of the 4 hospitals are actually located right in this University Circle neighborhood within about a mile radius of each other. Severance Hall is home to one of the top 5 orchestras in the world. Phenomenal orchestra, big music art scene in the city of Cleveland. We also have the nation's largest theater district outside of New York City. We're a thriving professional sports town. That's kind of my jam. So again, the metro parks are incredible too. I'm going to give a shout out to the metro parks. I'm a runner as well, so I love the metro parks here too. We have a national park a half hour away as well. So if you're a big outdoorsy person, Cleveland's a big place for that too. We have 3 MD programs in Cleveland. The first are in our school, excuse me, at Case Western. The first is our medical scientist training program. This is our MD PhD program. This is a fully funded program by the NIH, the National Institute of Health. About 11 to 14 students per year. The first 2 years in the MD PhD are spent in the university program cohort. And then years 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be spent receiving or earning your PhD, and then followed by years 7 and 8 of the finishing the MD portion of your degree. This is international students, unfortunately, are not acceptable for this program. I'm so sorry because it is a government-funded program, so not eligible, sadly. But this is a very small cohort. Definitely want research first, physician second. Don't want to make patient care maybe your primary focus in practice. You definitely want to be maybe more of that behind-the-scenes person in medicine, doing a lot of research. It's not uncommon for students to come into an MD PhD program and have maybe thousands of hours of research. I use the 80/20 rule. A lot of my MSTP colleagues have shared about 80% of your medical related experiences should be research, about 20%, give or take, should be patient care exposure. I almost look at it like kind of a Broadway show or some kind of production, right? You have the actors, then you have the behind the scenes camera individuals. The show can't go on without either of them. They both play a very critical component to the production. But the behind the scenes people individual, that's not maybe the individuals that are that really visible as much, perhaps. And that's kind of how I look at it, MD, PhD. You are a little bit more of that behind the scenes individual doing research. So then we have the Lerner College program. This is a 5-year MD, very similar to any other MD program, but it is a 5-year MD and it's a very small cohort, 32 students. All right. And in the Lerner College program, 1 full year is actually a research year. Year 4 of the 5-year MD is research. So you have to have research to apply to this program. It is also a tuition-free program. It is Case Western. Your diploma still says Case Western. It's at our medical school, but it is run mainly at the curriculum and whatnot through the Cleveland Clinic. So I always say have a 50-50 split maybe in your experiences. So probably about half your experience should be research focused and maybe the other half should be patient facing exposure as well. And this is the university program, what Dr. Lee and I both represent. This is the most popular program, 170 students in our class. Research, again, is not required to apply. Many students have research, again, great thing to have on a resume, but not a requirement. 50% small group and 50% case-based learning. The main vehicle for medical education is IQ. You'll be in teams of 8 with 1 faculty member evaluating about 2 patient cases each week. You're also going to have an MD research thesis that's going to be 12 weeks in length. And you'll also have, many students will do beyond 12 weeks as well, but there is carved out time in the curriculum for at least 12 weeks if you'd like it. And then there's also pre-clerkship electives, pathways, and many other different avenues you can take to add some credentials to your name within the university program. And it's a block schedule curriculum. So each block is about 10 to 14 weeks, with the exception of block 1. Block 1 is 5 weeks. It's a pass-fail grade system in med school. That's very common. I don't know of too many med schools the first 2 years that are not pass-fail any longer. But you can see there's themes each week that highlight the key important teaching points for that block. And you're assessed essay-based examinations at the end of each block. So that's the time you're evaluated for a grade, so to speak. This is really a screenshot of what your first 2 years of medical school are going to look like. And this is a screenshot of what a typical day looks like your first 2 years of medical school. You have your case inquiry teams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's the main vehicle for medical education. That's where you're going to spend the bulk of your time outside the classroom. You're going to be divided into teams of 8 each block, and you will evaluate patient cases, basic sciences, clinical component context to it, of clinical scenarios. You might review MRI findings, you might review CT scans, you might review lab results, and you're going to go through a patient case paragraph by paragraph and talk about everything you know about a particular patient with your team, and then everything you don't know. And someone's the scribe each week, someone's the team leader every week. There's also going to be a couple team members assigned to actually present the patient cases later in the week as you do a deeper dive. The goal is to really learn how to ask the right questions those first 2 years. Learn how to think like a physician. It's really important to know what you know about a patient, but it's even more important to know what you don't know about a patient. What don't we know about this particular patient case and situation? Again, asking the right questions is key. We want to get away from like spoon feeding our students every fact and figure of information. So that's really the meat and potatoes of the curriculum, is those IQ teams. You'll have lecture as well 3 days a week. You'll also have Tuesday morning seminars, anatomy, as well as some other experiences within our skills and simulation center, among other things too. But you can see only about 20, 25 hours a week, which isn't too bad. I always say if you have good time management, you're highly disciplined, you have strong independence. I don't think these will be the deepest, darkest years of your life. I think you can maintain some okay work-life balance. There's going to be times where it'll be very challenging. It is med school, but There is a lot of flexibility in the curriculum as well, and a lot of students will pursue a pathway. We have 9 different pathways listed on the screen there. Those are generally weekly seminars. You pick one pathway, can apply to more than one, but in the end, you only can pick one. A small handful of students will also do dual degrees, and we have dozens of pre-clerkship electives as well that students can participate in. Those are not capped. You can participate in as many as you'd like. So those are opportunities to add some credentials to your name and what a lot of students do with that self-directed learning time. So back to years 3 and 4 briefly here about the hospitals, and I will share, we are so fortunate in Cleveland to be partnered with some of the best hospitals in the world. Second or third largest VA hospital in the United States is in Cleveland. It's either the second or the third, depending on, I think, who you talk to. Dr. Lee's shaking her head. Her husband works there, so she would know better than me. But nonetheless, one of the, I think, caring for our veterans, I think that's something we recommend everybody do a rotation at the VA. I think that's something that'll give you healthcare a little bit through a different lens, maybe not as much working with insurance companies and whatnot. And then there's also Metro Health Medical Center. The Glick Center is actually a new facility that opened a couple of years ago, but that's our public safety net hospital of the city. So, level 1 trauma center, there is a pride clinic, there is a Spanish speaking clinic, there is even a high school, a STEM high school physically located inside the hospital as well. So open their doors really to all patients, maybe some underinsured patients or uninsured patients as well. Very diverse patient population at Metro. Also, Cleveland Clinic is probably maybe the most well-known, I would say, brand like outside of the Northeast Ohio region, but it is Ohio's largest employer, and they have satellite campuses throughout the region. And they have campuses in South Florida, Abu Dhabi, as well as Toronto, London, and I think Vegas as well. But the mothership is here in Cleveland, Ohio. They actually even have their own zip code. It's enormous. But again, most well known for cardiovascular care, very well known hospital. And also, University Hospital is a classic teaching hospital with 700 beds on our main campus. Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital is affiliated with the University Hospital system, and it's 4 very different hospitals that give you access and exposure to 4 very different patient populations. That's key. And being one of the few med schools in the region, a lot of students will come from maybe a Boston or a New York or an LA, and wow, to be able to train at, potentially all 4 of these hospitals is a big, big draw to Cleveland. Couple years ago, I think there was, I don't know, I want to say there's a little over 170 different medical specialties in the United States currently. I think like every single one existed in Cleveland a couple of years ago. I think that was in 2023. If you fact check me on that, I'm not sure if that's true any longer, but you get the gist. Almost every specialty of medicine is here in the city of Cleveland amongst our 4 teaching hospitals. We really, student success, your success is our success as a student. There's 7 different society deans very involved in our community, are all practicing physicians. There's also a team of learning specialists and career advising specialists as well that will work with you. Physician burnout is real. Self-care is very important. We have an amazing student affairs team. I couldn't speak highly enough about them. And the 7 different society deans, you'll have your own academic dean, kind of like your academic advisor in med school, help outside the classroom, identifying a specialty, applying to residency, critical components as you progress in your career. Everybody loves stats, so we're going to show you this most recent stats on our application. Had quite a bit of applications this year. 11% up from last year, and we're up again this year, we just saw. So I guess we're going to stay popular, at least for the moment. And you can see the application breakdown amongst our 3 programs right there. We do offer a lot more than that 170 that matriculated in the university program. We are fortunate to have many students receive multiple offers, and many students will at times decline their admissions offer, but you can see we do interview a large number of students, and a large number of that interview pool, a good chunk, will also be admitted as well, and then 170 ultimately matriculate. So the Lerner College program, the medical scientist training program, very similar. Frozen here? Uh-oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Sorry. So our geographic diversity here, you can see California took home the top prize for most state represented this year. Just squeaked out Ohio, but 33 states plus DC. This is amongst all 3 of our programs. So very geographically diverse class. And we do take international students to both our MD programs. Admission, tuition, all the same. Treated just like any other applicant. We're a private school. We're about 80% out of state, give or take each year. So, Average GPA at Case Western this past year was a 3.9. Average science GPA, 3.87. That is slightly higher than the national average of a 3.77 and a 3.71 science. I've had students ask me, what does my GPA need to be? There's not really a GPA cutoff. If you're in maybe the low 3-point range, I sometimes say, consider a post-bac or a master's. You don't have to, but maybe consider it. Strong upward grade trend. Again, med school admissions is somewhat of a brutal business. What have you done for me lately? Whether it's in a post-bac master's or the end of undergrad, year or two of undergrad, a strong upward grade trend is very critical. Our average MCAT and median MCAT is a 517. We have a wide MCAT range. Do not let this number scare you. I repeat, do not let this number scare you. You do not need a 517 to apply nor to be accepted to our medical school. Look at the range from last year. It's quite wide, all right? The average MCAT last year, nationwide for students that matriculated to medical school, was about a 512, so 511.7. Now that's the national average. We do interview students at or below the national average. I will say the vast majority of students that we interview at Case Western do have an MCAT above the national average. So hope that can help give some context. But it is a wide range, so please keep that in mind as well. I've had students ask me, should I retake the MCAT if I'm below the national average? You could. I think it's up to you. It's something to consider if you're below a 511 or below a 512, but you don't have to. 50% of students that get into med school each year are below that national average threshold. I always encourage students, don't hesitate to apply to Doctor of Osteopathic medical schools as well. It's becoming increasingly common for students to apply to both MD and DO instead of just one or the other. I think that's, again, cast a wide net. Dr. Lee and I always say, like, our goal is get you into med school. If you come to Case Western, that's great. But I look at this in our role as like, we want you to get into med school and really arm you with the most information you can to do so. So we're going to close it out with some qualities that we see in Case Western students. None of this should really come as a surprise, but you can see that mention teamwork, mention commitment to medicine, but like emotional intelligence, collaborative learners, focused and mature. I think a lot of these things are probably pretty obvious. I'm not going to read all of them, but try to value the journey in this process, not just the destination. I know at times, I'll just say it, this is kind of an inhumane application process, but it's worth the journey and it's worth the destination, I will say. Try to enjoy the journey. Try to enjoy these moments here where you're able to take in a lot of really good information as you either prepare or maybe are currently in the process of waiting. Maybe you've already submitted your application. Wherever you are, definitely savor the moment because there's a lot of joy and fun that comes within it, and I think excitement as well. There you go. Values the journey and not just the outcome. This is a list of all the non-medical related experiences that our entering class participated in this past year. This is kind of a way to close it for fun. You can see we had a bartender, a chess player, a radio DJ, a mechanic, a software engineer, a rec center front desk worker, a rock climbing coach. I'm a rock climber. That's cool. I forgot we had a rock climbing coach this year. You get the gist. Put this stuff on your application. Mention work-life balance, right? Also mention teamwork. Can you work as a team? I feel like a lot of these things are like kind of solid transferable skills. Mention instruments. Mention if you're an athlete. I think that really med school is the kind of place they're going to teach you everything once you get here. That is valid. You got to show that commitment to medicine on your application as well. But I think some of those lived experiences in terms of collaborating with others, in terms of knowing how to work as a team and with one another, all these things can really teach you that. And I think it also teaches you how to have a little fun too and enjoy what's going to be at times stressful, but very exciting 4 years of your life in medical school. So again, put this stuff on your application. That's the moral of the story. We do have an MCAT cutoff of a 495. If you're below a 495, you will not be eligible to receive a secondary application. But again, 495 and up for a secondary application, you apply. AMCAS is verified, you'll get our secondary application. That's when you can distinguish between all three of our programs. If you want to apply to all three, both, just one. We don't see a lot of students that apply to all three, but I guess you could if you want. You can apply to two, the Lerner College program and the university program, and get accepted to both. That happens probably every year. You can also apply to two, get accepted to just one. I don't really think one decision correlates to another, truly. But again, definitely can apply to multiple programs. And I know you met Christian at the beginning of this call. He's the podcast guy. So he's got a podcast with over 70 episodes and 600,000 people have downloaded it. He thought his grandma was just going to listen when he launched it. I told him he was a little crazy, and I was right, because look at how much this has taken off. It has been such a hit in the pre-med community. It is a plethora of information. So download it. It's free. A lot of really, really good resources. And we're on Instagram too. So check out our Instagram as well for all our latest updates. You can totally follow us. We love social media followers. You don't have to be a current student or an applicant to follow us. Anybody can. And there is our contact information. So myself and Dr. Lee are here to take any questions. I want to give one last piece of advice before we turn it over to questions. And, thinking about applying to medical school, and I find that not only myself and Dr. Lee, we're not only reviewing applications for like qualifications, but we're also interviewing students and reviewing applications for, wow, if we offer an interview to this student, and they're accepted to our medical school, what are the odds they're going to matriculate? It's almost like a job interview, right? Like if I'm going to offer somebody the job, or we're going to offer somebody the job, gosh, we'd like you to take the job, right? So I think any kind of connection you can make to the institutions that you're applying to. I know Christian said at the beginning of this call, like, keep coming to these sessions. Like sometimes we'll even see people name drop us in the application. We have an optional essay where you can share anything else you want the Case Western Admissions Committee to know about you. And some students will write about Case Western. I think that's a great idea. You can talk about the curriculum. You can talk about the city of Cleveland. You can mention the admissions office. All those I think can be helpful too in kind of gauging student interest, which is important, especially coming from California. A lot of students come and maybe they've never been to Cleveland before. I think it's always helpful to see when students are very interested in the Case Western community, and it kind of is like, oh wow, this student came to our webinar and now we're reviewing their application. I think it kind of provides some good context and perspective. So just a little bit more advice there. And also mentioned applying MD and DO. I think that's becoming increasingly common. I'd recommend maybe all students consider doing that as well. I think you want to give yourself the best chance to get into med school by really casting a wide net. And I think, gosh, we're up to over 20 med schools now that the average student is applying to, which is, gosh, grown a lot in the past several years. You don't have to apply to that many. I think that's a good benchmark to shoot for. However, I know these applications do come at a cost. Want to be understandable of that as well. But again, that's something to keep in mind as well as you go through this process as too. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. There's our emails in the chat there, and I'll turn it back over to David.
Well, before I stop the recording, thank you, Tom, for doing this. This is amazing. I'm looking at the roster of participants here. I'm pretty certain that almost everybody has. I looked at AAMC this morning. There were 64 Gauchos who have applied to CASE this cycle. By the way, Cal, my Gauchos apply. The average successful application last cycle, applicant had applied to about 34 programs.
Yeah, being in California, that makes sense. Sorry.
It
Thanks
happens.
for that, David. Yeah.
So they hear 20 and they're like, oh my goodness, if only.
Yeah. And that's an average, everybody. Just in context, but I appreciate you saying that, David. That's
the
good.
Low-hanging fruit question that I think none of my students have the audacity to ask, but I will, since it's of no consequence to me or impact to me. When have you started sending invites yet, interview invites? And what does the window look like for you for the II season?
Yeah. So we'll start interviewing probably right after Labor Day. And I'd imagine we'll start sending invitations sometime in the middle of August. And we'll be interviewing through the month of January. May go into February, but it'll definitely be through the month of January.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So hang tight if you've already submitted. Yeah, we just started reviewing last week, so we're we're kind of beginning stages still.
Okay,
So we
very good. Yeah, I knew this is early. I mean, I think this is earlier than we did the last year, but I thought
It
given
might
that,
be, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
given that time frame. Okay. So, questions from students. I don't know if you want to unshare so we can see maybe more kids
Yes. Oh,
and
please. Yeah,
see hands.
totally. I'll drop
Sindhu.
my email in the chat too. So, and I think Dr. Lee has.
Yeah, it's already in there, Tom.
Yeah,
Too.
I
Perfect.
put your email in the
Thanks,
chat,
Dr. Lee.
Tom. Yeah,
Thanks
Right.
so much.
reach
Cool.
out any